Despite the fact that during the Nuremberg trials Zaukel publicly expressed incomprehension neither by his arrest nor even more so by being put on trial, this supposedly innocent ship is comparable in terms of bloodthirdness to the leaders of the SS itself. Ernst Friedrich Christoph Zaukel, starting his career from the sea, sailing not only on German but also on Swedish and Norwegian ships. He rose to the rank of sailor first class, and everything would be fine if not the First World War. Unlike many future leaders of the Third Reich, Zaukel was not involved in combat. With the outbreak of war, the ship on which he served was detained in France. In the same place, the entire team was sent to the camp. Zaukel received freedom after the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. Returning to the war-ravaged country, Fritz Zaukel worked as hard as he could, taking on any job. A significant event in his life occurred in 1922 when Zaukel received a ticket for a member of the Nazi Party and SDAP under the number 1395. A young and strong man, having wholeheartedly accepted the Nazi ideology, at the same time became a brown shirt or a stormtrooper. In fact, the SS later grew from this notorious stormtrooper. Zaukel actively participated in all brawls and fights, even during the grandiose massacre in Coburg, where the arriving supporters of Hitler had to confront the militant Social Democrats and Communists. In memory of this, Zaukel received the Badge of Honor Coburg, handed personally by Hitler, and also as one of the oldest members of the party, the honorary chevron of the Old Fighter, which only those members of the NSDAP who joined the party before 1933 had the right to wear. Zaukel moved quite quickly along the party line, in 1922 becoming the head of the party district branch in Thuringia. Therefore, it is not surprising that when Hitler came to power, the all-party fighter received the title of Obergruppenführer in both the SA and the SS, as well as the governor of his native Thuringia. A year later, Zaukel received the title of SS Gruppenführer. Zaukel reached the peak of his career in 1942. In fact, is that after a series of defeats, it became clear that the war was becoming protracted. Therefore, the question of the efficiency of the rear went to the same level as the question of the combat effectiveness of the troops. In other words, Germany needed a lot of manpower to replace those called to the front. Moreover, the forces had to be preferably free. On February 27, 1942, he became Commissioner for Labor in the management of the 4-year plan. A month later, Fritz Zaukel was appointed to the post of Commissioner General for the Use of Labor of the Third Reich. In fact, Zaukel became the head of all working people, regardless of place of residence and nationality. The main condition is residence in the occupied territory or in Germany itself. It should be noted here that until the beginning of 1942, Germany expected that it could manage the war on its own, as well as the forces of occupied Europe. However, huge losses changed the situation dramatically. Additional labor was required. This is in addition to those who worked for free in concentration camp and in factories of occupied USSR. Moreover, this very labor force had to work directly in Germany. Therefore, personally from Hitler, Zaukel received incredible power, including the ability to give direct orders to the military. Since the beginning of 1942, after they approved Zaukel's program for the use of labor, more than 1,800,000 people were imported into Germany, despite the fact that the program provided for an age limit from 17 to 35 years old. Both children and the elderly were taken out. The attitude towards such people can best be described in Zaukel's own words. All these people must be fed, settled and treated in such a way as to exploit them to the highest degree and at the same time at the lowest cost. The appetite for free labor grew more and more. Already in the spring of 1943, Zaukel demanded the daily import of 5,000 people, and in April, 10,000. In total, in less than 2 years of Fritz service, more than 5 million people were forcibly sent to work in Germany. Moreover, like a true German, Zaukel set quotas for each occupied region or city, so his subordinates did everything to ensure that the plan brought from above was not only fulfilled, but also overfulfilled. just in case. And this was on the conscience precisely the services subordinated to Zaukel. Rosenberg reported how the refusers were dealt with. Then the German police came and set fire to the houses of those who had fled. People who ran to put out the fire were dispersed, beaten, and arrested. Those who did not appear on time were to be shot. All schools were closed, and all married teachers were sent to work here and unmarried to Germany. According to the testimonies of the Germans themselves, the workers were hunted like dogs, then driven into freight cars or guarded in sheds where future slaves did not even have the opportunity to go to the toilet. In essence, Zaukel became the main ruler of souls and the slave owner of all conquered and occupied territories. Special men and women were hired who revived the so-called practice of Shanghainization, that is, deceptive recruitment. Everything looked rather nasty. In the bars, so-called agents soldered the victims or told tales about the incredibly beautiful life of workers in Germany. Those who agreed or drunk themselves into unconscious were loaded into wagons and sent to the Reich, where everything was accepted by the so-called labor exchange. In fact, it was like an ordinary slave market, when industrialists, peasants, and small entrepreneurs simply chose the workers they were interested in, paid a certain amount of money, and then after signing the document took the unfortunate with them. Fritz Zaukel launched such a violent activity in the field of capturing and in distribution slaves that it even caused rejection among the main Nazi ideologists. Alfred Rosenberg, who during interrogation at the Nuremberg Tribunal bluntly stated that he was simply forced to submit to recruit labor force. Even a car can produce something when I provide it with fuel, lubrication, and care. And how much more opportunities should I take into account for people if they are more primitive than a machine in terms of stock and race? Also, the main slave owner of Europe demanded from his subordinates during the capture of slaves to avoid false sentimentality, which could negatively affect the performance of the assigned tasks. At the Nuremberg trials, Fritz Zaukel, in his address to the tribunal, wondered why he was on the same bench as those who committed war crimes. The slave owner modestly called himself a simple worker, a hard worker, and an idealist who did nothing for which he could be judged. He even allowed himself this remark: "My functions in the empire included the distribution and regulation of labor. This was my main task. And in this case, I did everything in my power to organize this mass in such a way as required by the duties assigned to me. I did not diminish this role. It was my task and duty." However, despite all assurance of his own innocence, the Nuremberg Tribunal sentenced Fritz Zaukel to humanity and war crimes. The sentence was carried out on October 16, 1946.